Ever notice how the wind sounds different when something ancient, something deep under the water, suddenly remembers your name? Pine Lake, nestled in its valley, usually looks so quiet, so serene. But then, it's the same weekend every single year. The fog rolls in, thick and heavy, folding over the surface like a sodden shroud, and the cabins along the shore just go dark, one by one. It's like the lake itself is holding its breath, waiting. My buddy Caden, bless his oblivious heart, sent out the group text on a Tuesday. Cabins booked, no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just us and the lake. Be there Friday. 5 of us, Caden, Addison, Sophie, Rhiannon, and me, we hadn't all been together since high school graduation. Life gets in the way, you know? Pine Lake is only about 45 minutes southeast of Red Deer, Alberta. But honestly, once those dense spruce trees start to close in, it feels like you've driven right off the edge of the map. The winding back roads, leaving behind the neat rows of agricultural land, quickly give way to a dense, almost claustrophobic tunnel of green. Caden swore the place was free because the owners wanted it off-season. Off-season, I learned later, has a much deeper, more chilling meaning when the leaves are dying and Ghostpine Creek starts to swell, its waters rising with a cold, insistent murmur. We rolled in after dusk, the last sliver of daylight long gone. The road, already a bit dodgy, turns to gravel, then just dirt, then honestly it felt like rumor. Spruce trunks pressed in so tight on either side that the headlights looked like nothing more than weak flashlight beams down a never-ending hallway. Caden, bless his heart again, kept repeating, "Almost there," every 30 seconds, his voice a little too cheerful, a little too strained. When the tires finally crunched to a stop, the lake itself was invisible, swallowed by the encroaching night, save for a thin silver slit where the moonlight somehow managed to pierce the mist.
The cabin, a dark, hulking shape, squatted low on the shore, its logs blackened by decades of damp and untold winters. One window glowed, a single hopeful eye in the gloom. Caden had arrived early, he said, to air it out. What he didn't mention were the footprints already pressed into the mud on the porch. They were shaped like bare human feet, sure, but they were longer, wider, and the toes were definitely webbed. Inside, the cabin smelled like a strange mix of old cedar and wet wool, comforting, but also a little unsettling. While Rhiannon cracked open the first round of beers, Addison, ever the curious one, skimmed through the guest book. She paused, then read the last entry out loud, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Beautiful weekend until the knocking started. Left Sunday morning, lost our 3rd friend. Pray for us." No date, just that chilling, undated message. Caden, of course, laughed a little too loud, a little too quickly, and then, without a word, tossed the entire book into the wood stove. "People just love being dramatic," he scoffed, trying to sound dismissive. But just as the flames licked at the pages, something outside knocked. 3 slow, deliberate hits against the outer wall. We froze, every one of us. Wind, we told ourselves. It had to be the wind. Alberta winds can sound like fists, right? Now, I grew up around here, so I knew the shorthand, the whispered truths that never make it onto glossy tourist brochures. This wasn't just Pine Lake. It used to be Ghostpine Lake, a name earned through blood and sorrow. The story goes that around 1820, a brutal ambush unfolded on the lake's east shore. Blackfoot warriors descended upon a Cree camp, a conflict that turned the serene landscape into a battlefield. Bodies piled so high that the snow, they say, stayed crimson for weeks. It wasn't just a battle, it was a massacre. The survivors, heartbroken and vengeful, cursed the very ground. They believed an elder soul, a keeper of their history, sought refuge in a gnarled spruce tree. Not a pine, mind you, despite the lake's modern name. ensuring that the memory of that day would forever be rooted in this place. And every year since, when the crisp autumn wind shifts from warm to an icy bite, the lake seems to remember.
People swear they hear the phantom thundering of horses, abruptly halting mid-gallop. Mirages of ancient encampment fires shimmer on the water, only to vanish when you blink. And sometimes you'll find hoofprints pressed deep into the muddy shore, leading nowhere, just ending as if the horse and rider simply dissolved. But there's a darker, more personal detail they never print on those plaques, a tragic romance woven into the horror. The betrothal. A young Cree woman promised to a warrior died that same night, her body cruelly cast into the marshy inlet. The legend claims her groom, a being now half man, half spirit of the slain, still searches for her, his lungs forever full of lake water instead of air, a chilling echo of his eternal grief. We tried to ignore it all, you know? We played cards, forcing cheer, trying to drown out the memory of the knocking and the chilling legend. We played until 2 a.m., but the knocks kept coming, every 20 minutes like a morbid clock counting down. Then at 2:17 precisely, the power cut out. The backup generator coughed, sputtered, and died a pathetic death. Sophie, ever the one for dark humor, whispered, "Did someone forget to pay the ghosts?" Laughter, even nervous, strained laughter, felt safer than any real answers. We ended up pairing off to sleep, huddled together. I bunked with Addison in the back room, trying to convince myself it was just a normal cabin trip. Just as I started to drift off, a wet, sickening gurgle rose from beneath the floorboards, like lungs emptying water, or maybe filling. Addison sat bolt upright beside me, her eyes wide with terror. "Did you hear that?" she breathed. I just nodded, counting the frantic beats of my own heart. Then something scraped the underside of the cabin, slow, deliberate, searching, as if a massive, unseen hand was dragging itself across the rough wood, inch by agonizing inch. Dawn brought no answers, only more of that thick, oppressive fog. Caden, in a bizarre display of normalcy, was scrambling eggs like nothing at all had happened, humming some cheerful tune. That is until Rhiannon burst into the kitchen, her face pale, holding up a torn strip of fabric. It was buckskin, clearly, beaded with ancient faded patterns and soaked through. It dangled from a broken fishing rod stuck upright in the reeds about 20 yards out from the shore. There were no footprints leading to it, nothing to explain how it got there.
Just that single, unsettling piece, waving in the mist like bait on a hook. Caden's forced grin finally faltered. "Prank," he muttered, but his voice cracked audibly on the P. It was then, seeing the genuine fear in their eyes, that I told them the fuller legend, the whole ugly truth. They listened, spoons hovering mid-air, their breakfast forgotten. After that, we just needed to get away from the cabin, away from those talking walls. We rented a tin boat from the shed, desperate for some distance. Mid-lake, the fog thickened into an impenetrable curtain, swallowing us whole. Out of nowhere, we hit something, soft, solid, and utterly wrong. The hull lifted 6 inches, then slapped back down with a sickening thud. Not a log, definitely not a rock. Rhiannon, quick thinking, shone her flashlight over the side. A pale hand, fingers shredded, slipped under the surface, dissolving into the murky green. Sophie screamed, a raw, primal sound. Caden gunned the motor, desperate to flee, but it just sputtered, coughed, and died. We drifted, silent, paralyzed, hearing only the rhythmic drip of water from the oars. Then came the singing, low, haunting, syllables from a language none of us knew. But Addison, her eyes distant, later said matched lullabies her Cree grandmother had half remembered. The voice circled us, genderless, filled with an ancient, unbearable mourning. When the engine finally caught, with a roar that felt like salvation,
We didn't look back. We just fled. Back on land, we checked our calendars with trembling hands. 3 nights. 3 nights until the anniversary of the massacre. Locals online, when you could snag a bar of signal, which was rare out here, called them the calling days, a time when single women camping near Ghostpine Creek had a nasty habit of vanishing. Police, of course, always blamed black bears, but bears don't leave bridal vests made of algae hanging artfully on tree branches, do they? We decided with a unanimous, desperate vote to pack up and get the hell out of there before dusk. But the SUV, our last hope, refused to start. The battery cables chewed clean through. The teeth marks were wide, like a wolf's, and the edges of the severed cables were foamy with lake scum. It wasn't an animal. It was a message.
Night 2. We barred the doors, smashed chairs to reinforce the windows, anything to keep whatever was out there out. The knocks now had turned to frantic scratches, then to full-bodied slams that shook the cabin to its foundations. Between impacts, we could hear it, wet, heavy breathing, and words, garbled and guttural, as if spoken through a throat choked with pondweed. "Come back." At 3 a.m., the front door's mail slot flipped open with a soft click. A bloated lily pad, impossibly green and slick, slid through, landing on the rug like a morbid calling card. Written on mud on its surface, 1 heart, 1 arrow, and 1 date. Tomorrow's date. Caden stared at it, his pupils blown wide in the dim light. "It's not hunting season," he joked, his voice hollow, devoid of any real humor. We all knew. Humor wasn't going to save us now. Sophie couldn't stop shaking. She kept repeating over and over like a broken record. "We just give it what it wants, right? 1 bride, then it leaves us alone." The idea, horrifying as it was, fermented fast in the fear-soaked air. Addison, ever the rational one, tried to argue, "Nobody volunteers for forced marriage with a corpse, Sophie." But fear, raw and visceral, fractures reason like glass. By dusk, Caden, the pragmatic leader, had a plan. We'd draw straws. One of us would walk to the lake at midnight, wearing the white bedsheet as a grotesque bridal gown to buy the other's time, to appease the thing. Rhiannon called it barbaric, a horrifying betrayal. I called it unthinkable. Yet we drew, because democracy, even in its most twisted, desperate form, feels righteous, feels like it absolves you, even when it's ugly beyond belief. Addison pulled the short splinter. Her eyes didn't cry. They just accepted, like people accept inevitable weather. We tied the sheet around Addison like a macabre dress, a shroud for the living. Caden held the flashlight, his knuckles bleeding from gripping it too tight, his face a mask of terror and shame. The fog, thick and hungry, swallowed the shore whole. Addison stepped forward, barefoot on the cold, unforgiving stone. Water lapped at her ankles, then her knees. Nothing surfaced immediately. Then a shape rose from the depths, immense, terrifyingly tall, easily 7 feet. Its skin was algae green, dripping with lake water, and its hair was a tangled mass of dead cattails. Its eyes, 2 faint embers, glowed with an ancient, hungry sorrow. It extended a hand, webbed and grotesque, its nails clicking against the air. And then, behind us, twigs snapped. More shapes. Ghost warriors, spectral riders on spectral horses, headless and silent, guarding their kin's wedding. Addison looked back once, her eyes meeting mine, and mouthed a single desperate word. "Run." We did. We ran. We left her. And I still hear her silence chasing me every single day. Sophie and I crashed through the spruce, tearing our clothes, our skin, our sanity. We found the highway by dawn,
just as the sun was a faint promise on the horizon and flagged down a truck, incoherent with terror. The RCMP searched the cabin. No bodies, no Caden, no Rhiannon, no Addison. Just the guest book, open to a fresh page. A new entry scrawled in what looked like mud. Returned my bride. Thank you for keeping tradition alive. The officers, of course, blamed coyotes, dehydration, mass hysteria. They shut the cabin for the season, a convenient end to an inconvenient mystery. Lexi moved east, far away, trying to outrun the echoes. I stayed near Red Deer, though, counting the autumns, counting the years.
Every year, without fail, as the spruce needles yellow and Ghostpine Creek swells with the cold, I drive past Pine Lake. The cabin's gone now. Burnt down last winter, they say. A final, cleansing fire. But the fog? Oh, the fog still rises. If you're foolish enough to stop at the old boat launch, if you roll your window down in the chilling silence, you might just hear it. That familiar knocking from the water. 3 slow, deliberate beats. And if you're stupid enough to answer, to linger, you'll smell the faint, cloying scent of lilies left by something ancient and sorrowful that simply refuses to accept centuries-old grief. The creature doesn't hate us, you see. It loves with a grip too tight for life, a love that drowns everything in its path. So, next time your friends text you about a free lakeside cabin, especially one that seems a little too good to be true, check the dates, dig into the local tragedies, and if the wind ever sounds like someone saying your name with lungs full of water, my friend, just drive. Drive as fast as you can. If this story kept you awake, do me a favor. Share it with someone who really needs to stay inland. Hit like, drop a comment telling me what you would have done in our shoes, and make sure you subscribe for more truths they definitely don't print on tourist plaques. Stay out of the fog and stay safe.